And I will share my screen. Bear with me because we all know how it goes when I try to share my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Can everybody see? Let me get rid of this guy. Okay. Shanice, can you see what you need to see, or can you hold on? I can.
No, that's good.
Okay. Just let me know when you want to click over. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. We are recording and we are here. Hi everyone, I'm Shanice. I am a coach on this team. And I get to talk about personal development today, which is huge. This is honestly what elevated my journey as a whole. And so, are feeling like they're doing everything fitness wise and nutrition wise, but maybe it could be the personal development, that person where I felt like I was, and I still was having a tough I can't do it. And so then I would stop. So, Erica, you can switch over to the next slide. I thought we could start by the myths of personal development, because I was totally that one person where I thought that personal development isn't for everyone. I thought that it was going to be easy. I thought that I already knew who I was. And so I was like, why do I even need to dive into this? I thought there was only one way with personal development, because that's just how I was looking at, like, Erica do her stuff and Erin do her stuff and just a bunch of other people figuring it out. And I thought it was considered a quick fix. And as a therapist, I know that there's no such thing as a quick fix in general in life. And so I was like, this is just an easier way for people not to go to therapy, and they need to go to therapy. I feel like every therapist believes that everyone needs to go and see a professional when it comes down to just life stuff in general. But so I thought it was personal development isn't for everyone. We need to grow as a better person, and that's just hidden beneath our subconscious. It becomes uncomfortable, and then you end up wanting to do it more and more because you see the change and the shift in your mindset. So that was just a myth. That the first myth. The second myth is personal development is easy. No, if it was easy, then it wouldn't be uncomfortable. We wouldn't be growing from it. My favorite super trainer Autumn always says, if it's easy, then you're not growing. You're not pushing yourself more to grow as a different person. If it's uncomfortable, then you're at the point of growing. Right? Continue to push through the uncomfort, because when you become uncomfortable, you start to learn different things that help you grow. And those are like habits and stuff that end up sticking with you for a long time. I mean, I didn't think that I was prepared to go through with this job, this opportunity that was given to me, that was, kind of like, this is something you should go for. There was all the signs for me going for it, and I still needed to check in with friends to be like, why am I feeling like this is not where I should be? And it was because I was uncomfortable with the fact that I've never been a supervisor before in this type of industry that I work for, and I'm going to be going back to being a beginner, and that makes me uncomfortable. At the same time, that helps me grow as a person, and this is only going to elevate my life, beyond being a therapist and a supervisor. The third thing that I thought was a myth was, I already know myself. Why do I need to do this? At this point in my journey, before I was not going to therapy. I was so depressed sitting in my house because it was the like dead winter of Washington, and my apartment was dark, and it was rainy, and I was not happy. again with Erica, and I just like wasn't doing it, and I had no idea why, and it was because I assumed that I already knew who I was. I wanted to become someone that was happier with who I was looking at in the mirror, and I wanted to become a better fiance, and I wanted to become a better therapist, and I was the one that was holding myself back, because I assumed that I already knew who I was, and that personal development wasn't going to help me, and that it wasn't going to fix me, and it wasn't going to do all of these things. I picked up "Girl, You're a Badass" and read the first sentence and shut it, because I was like, this is not for me, and I'm not going to do this because I already know that I'm a badass. And I also thought that this was going to be a quick fix. Like, holy effing wish. I that it was a quick fix, because personal development is a lifelong journey, and it's a process, right? Like, there are going to be books that I 100% agree with what these people are. Why am I feeling all of these feelings? And that's because it's a lifelong journey, and it's just part of a greater picture, and it takes time and dedication. Ooh.
Shanice, I'm going to say something really quickly. You're cutting. It's not bad right now, but you're cutting in and out. Nicole suggested if you turn your camera off, it might actually help with the bandwidth so that you're coming through more clearly. Cause I really want everybody, like, I like can track what you're saying, because I know some of that story, but I think it's really valuable and I want people to be able to hear it.
Shoot. Okay, hold on. Maybe I should just call in. You're muted, Erica. You were just muted. I didn't hear what you said.
You just try the camera first, and then if we need to do more than that, we'll go from there. Like, it's not terrible, but it is getting patchy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks for letting me know. I'm just in the chat and I'm just reading a lot of these things. Yeah, I swore up and down I would never read or listen to a PD book. They honestly are something I can't get. Yes, 100%. It's just part of the greater picture. I can tell when I feel like I'm in a good place. I stray away from it. Yes, that too. I feel like whenever I'm in a good place, I'm like, oh, I don't need to see my chiropractor. My back feels great. But then I'm like, no, like the reason why my back feels great is because I continuously go to see a chiropractor or a massage therapist. And that's the same thing with personal development. There's only one correct way a person to follow with personal development. No, personal development is just that. It's about you. It's personal. And so if me writing down my goals every single day helps me, but that doesn't help you, that's okay. What I read and what I resonate with isn't always going to be personal for you, because it's personal development and it's about you. So trying to follow other people's way of dealing with personal development can kind of limit yourself, right? Because you want to make sure that it's going to be about you and centered about you and resonate with who you are. And it's not all about following other people. You can get ideas on what other people do, but personal development is just that. It's personal. Erica, you can go to the next page. Okay, my story. So all of those myths I believed in my heart and my soul. Like I said, I was showing up for my workouts. I was eating the way I was supposed to. Erica was kind of like hinting here and there, like, you should be reading this or try and read that, but she never was really pushy, which was nice, and I appreciate. But I was still struggling with making it through my workouts, and I knew that little voice inside of my head was winning more than I wanted her to. And I'm not going to let that person win. I had to get off the camera and say that, because I'm not going to let that person win. I'm not going to let that voice inside of me be like, you can't do this. And that resonated deeply with me, because I knew that I I thought I knew who I was, and I still wasn't fully happy. I was still too afraid to dive deeper and deal with like these emotions that were coming up and why this little voice was still winning. And I would like honestly look at girls like Erica and thought like, ugh, like this is annoying. Like, why is she so happy? And like I literally had no idea why I was like not like resonating with her, or why she was doing all of the things that I felt like I wasn't doing, or I thought that I was doing. I was showing up for my workouts. I was talking really confidently to myself, but like I still wasn't, I don't know. I just was annoying. I wanted to be as happy as Erica. I want to be as confident as Erica, and I wanted to be as positive and as optimistic about life that she was, and that she was like pouring out of herself. And I 1,000% thought that personal development wasn't for me in any way. I was like, there isn't a book out there that I wanted to read with. I couldn't resonate with anything. And I was truly like completely wrong with all of that. And I was doing myself a disservice by not showing up for myself in that part. Because in order for us to take this journey to and to the next level, you have to make sure that you are showing up mentally for yourself, and you have to make sure you're dealing with those emotions, because when you do work out, those emotions do come up. And why are you feeling that way is so important to reading different journeys and reading about yourself and growing and just becoming patient with who you are. And that's what I needed to do. I needed to realize that Beachbody for me wasn't a quick fix. And even though I was eating and doing all of the things, there was something that was missing. And that was for me to mentally grow and shift that mindset from a stuck right here mindset to a growth mindset. And so it sounds really ridiculous. And I feel like there's a lot of people that can resonate with this, but at the same time, if it was easy and if it was fun, then I feel like everyone would be doing it. And then we'd have no issues with, mentally being uncomfortable and pushing ourselves to the next level. And so that is the reason why personal development for me is so deep. It's deeply rooted. And there are some days I don't do it and I miss it because I feel like I don't have the time, but that's on me to make the time, because personal development is so important. And it's a huge part of this whole entire thing. So next slide, Erica. Amazing things happen when you put energy into your growth mindset and learn who you are. Seriously, amazing things happen when you feel like you are strong enough to take on anything. Once I started to push back on those thoughts and picked up what I said, a damn book, I realized that there was more than just reading a book. It was like reading to a friend that knew me, that knew that I needed to hear this. And it's not a one size fits all. There were a couple books that I picked up, and Erin was like, you should try the Shaun T book. And I started reading a little bit and I was like, no, the Shaun T book isn't for me. Like, it's not for me right now, and that's okay. So I just one day was walking through Target and then picked up a Rachel Hollis book. And then I started reading a little bit and was like, I found myself saying out loud, like, yes, 100% yes, this is exactly what I need at this moment. And so then I started reading a lot of her books, and then listening to more podcasts. Erica, you can go. Like I said, I wanted to get her Start Today journal because I was hearing a lot of great things about it. I started to read a few paragraphs in her book, and was literally hooked. From there, I started to follow her on Instagram, where I got to see more personal development people, and people that I thought I would connect with. And that's where I saw Trent Shelton. First of all, he's a Black male with dreads. And I was like, you're hot. Like, I need to listen to what you have to say just because you look really good. So then I started following him. And then I started listening to his podcast and I was like, yo, this is exactly what I need to be listening to now. My worth. I had no idea that I was worthy. I had no idea that I wasn't supposed to be feeling burnt out every single time that I was going to work. I had no idea that I was supposed to be, that I was allowed to fill up my own cup before filling up other people. There was a lot of time where I would put other people first. And I truly needed to realize that that was not okay any longer. I needed to set up those really amazing boundaries. I needed to find something that was speaking to me, and that was Trent Shelton. And so every single morning, Erica, you can go to the next slide. Every single morning, if I don't read her book, if I don't read Rachel Hollis's book, I put on a Trent Shelton podcast. Sometimes I listen to him all day because his voice is just so inspiring. And I craved what was coming next because I was feeling myself shift. I was in the way that I was carrying myself and my confidence. I learned about my worth. Like I said, I learned about not dimming my light for others. I learned about the importance of boundaries. I learned to quiet that voice in my head that said I couldn't. And just so much changed for me when I realized how this time for reading or listening podcasts were actually changing my life, literally right before my eyes. But that meant that I needed and accept that there are these hard emotions. And I remember that because it's not always going to be rainbows and butterflies with any part of our journey, and our journey is never linear. I'm just reading the thing, the chat.
You're good. Take your time. I notice you're starting to cut in and out again too. So you might want to turn the camera off again, but definitely take your time in the chat because there's some conversation in there.
Book club of yes. Just giving everyone the opportunity to look at different books and talk about different books that may have supported them or that they're interested in.
Shanice, I think we missed the first part of that. Can you go ahead and say it again?
Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Erica, because it's just different books that I thought I would be. Oh, actually, pause. Let me know if I'm cutting in and out because this is and the way that our community is. The foundation of Beachbody and our wholehearted, I hope I put whole-headed, sorry, wellness group is rooted deeply in moving our body, fueling and nourishing our body, and fueling and nourishing our mind. At any type of super weekend or anything that I've seen with Beachbody, any of the calls, even some of the workouts are surrounded in like nourishing your mind and finding time for yourself and reading about yourself and learning about yourself and growing as a person, which is also just as important to Beachbody as the nutrition aspect and about moving your body. And so that's the type of culture that we create in our community as well. Those three things is what's going to elevate your journey. It's not just the physical, and it's not just the fueling of your, like, what you eat and your nutrition. So now you can go to the next page, Erica. Okay, these are the other books that I'm interested in reading. These are some of the books that people have given me to be like, this is the next thing that you should do. Brene Brown, obviously, she's just amazing in everything that and You Are a Badass. I still haven't picked up You're a Badass again yet, and I want to after I finish reading Rachel Hollis. So that is everything. I'm interested in what people's thoughts are with personal development on our team, and just kind of hearing what it was for others that made them want to do personal development, why it's important for them, and maybe what are they struggling with personal development.
Which of those do you think, Shanice, like you want to start with? What, because that way people can answer one first, because there's a lot of those to unpack there.
I guess what um, what made you become more serious about your personal development is the first question. And then I guess the second question was, what were you struggling with?
I was still muted. So I distinctly remember You Are a Badass was the first one that like I actually did read. And I think it was right before I was about to graduate. And so that's kind of when I like started Beachbody and everything, like graduate college. And I was just feeling so lost that I was like, you know what? It can't hurt to try and read a dang book. Like I'm at the breaking point of I don't really know what else to do and what's the worst that could happen by reading a book. So that's kind of where we started. And it's crazy to think of now I'm like obsessed with personal development.
What PD book is your favorite, Jess? Like since you started with You Are a Badass, what are the other ones that you've done and that you've really liked?
Here, I have my whole little shelf over here. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Bleep is really good. I also liked Mastering Your Mean Girl, The 5-Second Rule, and Atomic Habits. Those are like some of my favorites that I've read so far.
Okay, I'm gonna go, I guess then. So I never read PD, and Erica like literally came over to my house one day when we were talking and brought this bag of books. And I was like, nah, girl, like PD is not for me. And so I think the first book that I read was a Rachel Hollis book. I'm pretty sure Girl Wash Your Face, because I saw it everywhere. I was like, I'm gonna just read this. And I remember I do not touch books. Like I literally listen to all of them. I need to start getting better at using paper books. But I think the shift for me really was like being able to dive into myself and not just, I wear the hat of mom. And I feel like people look at me and they're like, you're a mom, like that's your sole title. And I know that's for a lot of us, and some of us don't have kids, and that's totally fine. But people identify you once you have kids as like, you're a mom and you need to pour everything that you have into them. And I feel like when I started switching, like not when I made the switch and actually started listening to audiobooks, I realized that I'm a mom, but I'm also still myself. And it helped me kind of learn to start pouring back into myself and not feeling guilty for wanting to put me first sometimes, instead of just always constantly pouring into my kids or my family or my work or things like that. So really taking ownership back of like my life and making sure that it was fun for me to live it as well. There's my cat.
I know that for me with personal development, I actually kind of started twice, which is ironic because I do that a lot. I start and then I stop and I'm like, oh, like actually that was working. Let me restart again. But my first personal development book ever was actually Girl Code, which is by Kara Alwill, I'm pretty sure. And I actually read it with Nicole. Nicole, I don't know if you read that one or not, but I read it in 2000. Well, I listened to it actually on audiobook in 2016. And it was the first time that I was introduced to the concept that other people that you can elevate other people with your own, with your own successes. And I think before I didn't I have a competitive spirit, but I was never like, I'm like better than you, I have to do that. But I was scared of stepping on people's toes. So the reframing of you can shine on it, you can shine and elevate each other's life was really helpful because it allowed me to switch oh, I can show up also. So it was almost that reverse of they're not out to get you, but they're not necessarily, if people get pissed at you for doing your own thing and being your own person, they're not your people. And I think that was like the shift that was really helpful for me in the beginning. And then I stopped again and then started the next one I picked up wasn't until 2019. I mean, that was The Universe Has Your Back, and being able to see that it's okay to trust and believe in something that hasn't happened yet. And it's okay to like create a vision before you know and you have the proof that that's what's going to happen. So I think for me, because like I was resistant, like I just like Shanice, like I would walk by that. I'm like, the only legitimate personal development I saw was Brene Brown, because she's a social worker. And in my mind, I could be like, oh, okay, like she's a social worker and has credentials behind her name, so that must be legit. But I would write off everything else. And I still was like, I don't need it. I'm a social worker too. Like, cause I couldn't look at the fact that I could improve, because I took the mindset of like, if I can improve, that means I'm not good enough. So it was like being able to sit with, I'm not where I am, like not where I want to be. And that's okay. So that's mine. And Bree, yeah, I think we definitely can. I was thinking about, I was going to share that on my story today and put like my stack of PD books. There's also, if you look in the file section on Facebook, there is a whole PDF on personal development books in there as well. But I'm going to mute myself and let somebody else talk.
Thank you.
I can go. I listen to things more. So I like Brene Brown's podcast is my jam. Like I am on like podcasts more often than I have, just like time to read, which is a little bit of an excuse because I definitely have time, but I just, do other things instead. But I also am in a spiritual direction small group. So it is with a bunch of people that I lived and worked with in California. And my boss's husband is actually a PhD in theology and spiritual direction and like guidance. So he is essentially my therapist. He's like, I mean, yes, I'm also that, but like, I'd rather you call me that. And I was like, okay, whatever. Todd, classic. And right now we are doing, it's a book called Recreating a Life. And the subtitle is like learning how to tell our most life-giving story. And I was thinking about this last week when you guys were talking, and it was just like, what is the story we tell ourselves about ourselves? And like, when we tell our story to other people, like our story isn't necessarily the story that they have seen either. So it's just so important to like, really like reevaluate the way that like we view ourselves and the story that like we have in our head of like who we are and what our worth is. So if you guys are looking for that, it's definitely spiritually driven, and I'm just really loving it. The last book we did in our group was like very heavy, and I was like, I hate this. So we started this one this month, and I was like, yes, this is so good. So I've been really liking that. But y'all, PD. It's really hard to kind of shift, like Megan was saying, like, oh, I'm a mom, that's how I am. I'm like, oh, I'm like an aunt, I'm a teacher. I have all these things I have to do, but like, that's not who I am as a person. Like, I'm also just like a person. So it's been something this past year that has really just kind of grounded me and be like, you are not this pandemic. You are not this, like this or this. So it's fun to, kind of just unpack, like, what's the story I tell me about me? So I'll put that in the thing.
It's honestly taken me until this pandemic to be like, okay, I truly need to sit down and just like work on me.
I think it's just because like everything we wrap ourselves, like our identities in, has been taken away from us. So now it's just like, all right, like now what? I'm stuck with myself, and like, what the hell do I do with that? Like it's really scary sometimes, but.
Erin, what book did you start with?
So you guys have heard my PD story before because I've talked about this, and we have the recording on the team page too if you want, but I will do a little brief overview again. So when I started coaching and all of this about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago now, my coach was on the like bandwagon Rachel Hollis train. And so she was like, you have to read Girl Wash Your Face. And I'm not like, everyone has their own PD, right? But Rachel Hollis was definitely not my PD, but I read it anyways because it was like, that's the book that everyone's reading. And I think after I read that book is when it really hit me that like, you don't have to read what everybody else is reading, and you need to read what fits best for you. And granted, throughout my PD journey, I have read a lot of books that other people have read, but they also were what I needed in that moment. But the first PD that really like spoke to me was Gary John Bishop's, I think it's called like How to Get Over Your Own Shit or something like that. I went through this phase of like every single book I read had some type of curse word in the title for some reason, but it was just like those were the ones that worked, because I'm one of those like tough love people. Like, you need to tell me like, Erin, get over your shit and like move on. And Erica will tell you that that's the type of person I am. And she will text me and ask me like, hey, do you want me to tell you my honest opinion, or do you need some time before I tell you? And so I read his, and literally his stuff is phenomenal, and I will go back to it time and time again, because every single time I read it, I get something new out of it. I'm not really the podcast person. I never have been. I do read one hard copy or like paper book, and I listen to one audiobook at like all times, because I'm like, I love music, but in the car on my commutes, I prefer, because I used to have a really long commute, I prefer listening to books. But yeah, and I know like, because of the amount of time that I've now been doing PD, during the years that I have since I started, I will know when I haven't been doing my PD, because I feel like 180-degree difference in like my day-to-day mood, which is really crazy, because like before I would have never even thought like, oh, I need this in my life, right? But I feel like it's the same with like our nutrition and stuff too. Like, the more you do it, the more you do your workouts, the more you eat. Excuse me. I like literally just got done with my 5K right before this call started. So but like, the more you do your workouts, the more you do eat correctly, the more you feed your soul through doing these PDs. When you don't do it, you start feeling a significant difference. And I've noticed that like anytime I've had a huge shift in my mood, oftentimes it's because I haven't been reading my PD for a few days, or it's because I'm not reading the right PD for me at that time. And so I think that, like, yes, we're preaching to you guys like PD is super, super important, but I think until you start doing it yourself and finding what works for you, you're never going to believe any of the stuff that comes out of our mouths, the same way that you're never going to believe what comes out of our mouths when we tell you anything about health, anything about nutrition, anything about fitness. It's like I need to do it for myself. And no matter like what kind of person you are, every human is like that, right? You might see someone's journey and be like, that's awesome, I want to do that. But you're not going to believe that it works for you until you do it yourself. And so that is my little spiel about PD. I do, like I said, I do tend to gravitate towards those ones that's a little bit more like hard love and get over yourself kind of things. So if that's something that you also like identify with, hit me up and I will give you my list of stuff, because I have read stacks and stacks of books now at this point in terms of like PD, and I'm a super nerd, so I read regular books at the same time too. But yeah, that's
Thanks for sharing. It's really important to remember that yes, personal development is personal development, and you will get to that point where you will be ready to dive in. And if you're not there yet, that's totally okay. Continue to work on your fitness, continue to work on your nutrition, and within time you'll be like, okay, now that I have those two things down, I'm ready to dive into a book or something where I emotionally and tie my whole journey together. So with that being said, if there's anything else, but I would love to know that, what am I trying to say? I would love to know that personal development is something that's on all of our radars, whether that's picking up a book or reading a podcast or reading a whatever, or listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook. It's yes, Jess, I'm always doing a ton of different ones at the same time, like reading a book and listening to podcast, so I feel like I'm never gonna finish Rachel Hollis because right now I'm in a trench shopping fan, and that's okay too. Picking up a book and then pausing it and going and doing something else and going back to that book is okay too. You don't need to sit here, and if you're not vibing with the book that you have, that's totally okay. Pick up something else and figure out what is going to work for you. We are all different, obviously different the way that it's supposed to. So reach out to each other and
I want to say
figure out
one thing about that. I have probably 5 different PD books that are like half read because I was really vibing with it and then I wasn't anymore. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to put it down. I'm going to leave it there. But it doesn't mean that it's not a good book and it's not helpful. It was in that time of life and then it wasn't anymore. So going off of that, it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, with whatever you're going through, you're going to want to read something that resonates with you at that time. And that's the importance of knowing that there's different types of PD books that are out there, and all of us are different, and we can help each other out with trying to figure out a book that will work for you. And ultimately, it's up to you to pick up something that you're going to be interested in, and that you're going to want to connect with and resonate with and complete. And I always recommend having like a journal, either just like during your personal development or your journey in general, and just writing a little bit every single day in that journal, and then you'll be able to see that mind shift and that change, because there will be times where you're like, I have to go and do something, and I've been changing my have to I get to, or I want to, and just that shift right there is what allows me to make that time. And also it's a value for me to move my body, and it's a belief of mine that I want to feel good. And so if those are 2 things that are important to me, I'm going to make the time to do it, and I'm going to put the effort into it, because that's what's going to make me feel better in the long run. And that's what's going to allow me to pour into other people as well. And so personal development is important to me. It's something that I will do every single day. Yes, Erica, 100%. And thankfully, we're not a one-sided team. There's a bunch of us. We all have different ideas and voices and opinions, and that's what makes our team so unique and cool, because I'm able to get those like, hard books from Erin if I want to, and then those maybe like emotional softer but really hits hard in the stomach from Erica. Like there's a bunch of different, we all resonate with different things, and so knowing who to go to and just talk to is important too. That's what makes our community like our community, and why we're so connected with each other. That's all I have to say. I love you.
Shanice,
You're muted.
Shanice,
Okay.
yeah. Try again.
He loves us all. That's what she was sharing.
I'm in swim, and I might die, like lose you guys, not die, like lose you connection. So just heads up.
I would like to add one thing real fast before how Shanice was talking about how like maybe you don't feel like it fits into your schedule right now, or fits in with what you're doing, or you're a little bit scared to start small and then grow. Like none of us who have been doing PD for a period of time started like, reading for 30 minutes at a time, or like diving super hard into like a really deep book. We all started somewhere small. Maybe it was like 10 minutes. Maybe it was like, I have a 15-minute commute in the morning, and that's where I'm going to listen to an audio book, or I'm going to listen to a podcast or 2, whatever, right? We didn't start out like being able to dive deep into these books, being able to just pick something off the shelf that really was exactly what we needed at that exact moment. We all started small with like 15 minutes with like a easy or kind of podcast or book, right? Or maybe it was that we like, oh, everyone's reading this book right now, so we're going to read it, right? We didn't automatically were able to understand like, this was exactly what I needed, or this book I saw and I read it on the shelf, and that is the one that I want right now. Like you don't have to be, it is scary for PD because it's going to unpack stuff eventually that maybe you don't really want to unpack, right? But if you start small, you're going to be able to build to the time that you want, right? Maybe you're like, I really want to be able to do PD for like 30 minutes, whatever it might be, right? But that's the same thing with our workouts, the same thing with our nutrition. If you go all in too quickly, it's not going to be something that sticks and lasts. But if you start small, if you talk with your coach about like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. Do you have a suggestion for a book right now? Maybe it's like, I'm going to read 2 pages a day. And that is what you're going to do, right? Like, it doesn't have to be something crazy or, like Shani said, overwhelming. Like, it's going to become overwhelming if you try to start too big and try to unpack too much at one point. So if it's something that's like, I don't know if I have time, or I don't know if I'm, ready for this, start with like, okay, in the car, I'm going to listen to this. If you have kids, like, pick one that doesn't have curse words in them, I guess. But like, your kids can listen to a lot of these PDs and it's going to be beneficial to them too. Granted, I mean, half the time they're probably not going to understand what's going on depending on the age of your children, but like, this is a thing that can be beneficial to everyone. I've like had like family members over when we do these team calls, and like my family members will listen to the stuff that we have, because people around you need this kind of stuff too, whether they're aware of it or not. And so, yeah. Erica also said something in the chat about a disclaimer, so I'm going to read that really fast. Depending on how much you start unpacking, it might bring up things that are really heavy. Just want to throw in and normalize that it's okay to seek external support, lean into the team, lean into your coach, go to a therapist. Yes. Erica is the Oprah of therapists. If she could pass out a therapist to everyone, she totally would. And I love that about her. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that because I know sometimes, like, I know as I've done personal development, it was uncomfortable for me to dig in. And then I started looking and I've got some really heavy stuff that like, then I was like at the point where then that's what I was digging into. And the next step wasn't me finding another personal development book. It was me getting support and walking through that. And some of us had that in our background. Some of us don't. We all have things that we're working through, and the level of what we've been through is going to dictate the level of support that we need moving forward. So.
A little bit on what Erin was talking about, starting small. I'm new to PD. And just the last few weeks, I've really been working on doing affirmations, starting my day and ending my day with I ams. I had seen on Megan's story a few weeks ago, her doing I ams with her children. And that really like hit me hard. I'm like, why don't I do that with my kids? Like, if I'm doing it, I want my kids to do that too. So I even started doing that with my children. And I've even seen a change in their attitudes too. And I've also had to start learning. Another thing I've been working on is changing the way I say things, like working out, I have to I'm able to, or I wish I can, or I wish to, I can. Just changing that thought mind in me is something I'm really working on. Another one that I really struggle with is I say sorry all the time. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be something from closing the door and I'll be like, I'm sorry. And I've been searching on that one for a long time. So if anyone has good recommendations on what to read on that, because I have stepped into it, but back then a few years ago, I didn't want to be told what the reasoning is to that. But now I'm at that point in my life where I really want to work on that. So if anyone has recommendations, I truly would appreciate it.
I don't have a book recommendation for that, but I think I might know somebody who will, because I learned from my coach a really long time ago, like instead of saying, I'm sorry, telling people like, thank you for being patient with me for XYZ, or like, I appreciate that you were willing to take the time to wait for me to do this, and be able to like reframe it that way, because I'm not sorry that like I needed that time and I took that time, but also like I want to acknowledge, like it helps me acknowledge that it did take them shifting whatever it was, or like, so showing that appreciation. So I'll see where she got that and see if it came from a book, but like just in my own mind, I try to use that like how I speak with others too. Like, I really thank you for being patient with my response. I really appreciate that. And that for me has made a huge shift because I don't feel as guilty.
I also saw, and I haven't read it, maybe somebody else has, so they can speak more to it, but I'm pretty sure Rachel Hollis has a book called Girl Stop Apologizing. I don't know if anyone's read it yet. It's on my list, but I'm pretty sure it's out there. Is it good? Those of you that read it?
Yeah, so I'm reading right now Girl Stop Apologizing, and it is really good. Rachel writes for moms though, so there's like a lot. I mean, she doesn't write just for moms, but she's a mom, so a lot of the stuff that she talks about is about mommy stuff. And I love Girl Stop Apologizing because I'm the person that apologizes for everything when I don't need to be apologizing for things. I shouldn't feel sorry for putting boundaries on people that are toxic for me. And I shouldn't feel sorry or apologize for spending 30 minutes in the morning moving my body because that's what makes me feel better. And like pausing the rest of the day for that. And she really talks about the importance of all of that stuff. So Brianna, that's a good one. Girl Stop Apologizing. And it also talks about mommy stuff too. But I think mixing that with Trent Shelton and knowing my worth has helped together. So even if you don't just read her book and you do something else, I think that would be okay too.
Megan, I like that you mentioned that some things are hit or miss. And somebody mentioned that earlier. Oh, you mentioned that earlier with the 5-second rule too. It's okay for you not to completely resonate with an entire book. Like there are, like, I feel that way with Rachel Hollis a lot. Like I'm not a huge Rachel Hollis fan. And when I pick her up, but there are some things in there that I'm like, oh my gosh, that piece really stuck. Take what resonates for you, leave the rest. And that's okay. And sometimes what doesn't resonate with you tells, like, that teaches you something too, because it's like, oh, like, what is it in that makes it not resonate for me? And then you can kind of clarify, like, just because it's not for you doesn't mean it should be, doesn't mean it's bad. It might help you clarify what is for you. So I kind of like try to look at PD that way as well, because you're your own person. Like you're going to be a combination of different people and different things and who you are. And like, this just helps clarify that. So,
and that's why, like, I really liked Girl Wash Your Face. Like that was the first book I did. And I think that might be why I liked it so much, because it was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, like I matter, but not really. Like I know I've mattered, but when I got to Girl Stop Apologizing, I think it was like 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 for me. And some of the things, like, I think it's like her reaction to some of the things that she, like the concepts that she has, like if somebody does this, well, then you need to do this, like that kind of reaction that she has to some sort of things, and how she kind of educates or pushes you to react to certain things, didn't really sit with me. But there were a lot of parts of the books where they did resonate, where like I don't have to be sorry for doing things that are for myself, and for telling my kids that we need to wait 30 minutes because mommy's busy doing this, and stuff like that. Or like feeling guilty about wanting to go to lunch with some of my friends and not take my kids and go by myself. Like I shouldn't have to feel guilty for that, like stuff like that. And so I resonated with that sense of it, but there's some things in it that just didn't click for me.
and I wonder, and you guys that have done personal development, like I'm curious now listening to everybody talk, because Megan, I heard you, it hit me when you said like it was my 4th or 5th book. And I know it probably was around like the same time for me that I stopped resonating with everything in books. And I started like being like, wait a second, that doesn't quite fit. And I wonder how much of that is linked to like, as we start to do personal development, we start to trust ourselves more, which gives us the ability to say no to things and recognize, like feel okay saying like, no, that doesn't fit me. And so I think that might be a pretty natural part of that process of like, I feel like I belong now. So I also feel safe and secure enough to say like, nope, like I'm okay if everything doesn't fit me. So I wonder if that's pretty common.
Brene Brown has my heart. That's like the last thing I'm chiming in. So
I have a quick question with everyone that is doing PD. As you start to like get into it a whole lot more, are you noticing a shift in like the group of people you're with, or the group of people you want to be with? Because I kind of am starting to feel that way. And I think I talked to my coach about this, or Megan, sorry, about this the other day, because like I'm always going to be appreciative of the people I had in my life throughout where I've been and where I'm going. But I'm starting to feel like I'm shifting in other directions, that like I'm not resonating with everybody else. I'm just wondering, is that okay, or is that wrong?
that's exactly what
Else
it's for. It's for setting up safe boundaries, and boundaries that are going to protect your mental health and your physical health. And like, for me, that's kind of a huge thing, because I don't want to say I eliminated people from my life, but I cut out toxic people that personal development helped me realize were actually toxic and were actually bringing me down, and not just in a way that like we disagreed on things, but people that were actually negatively impacting my life, if that makes sense.
And like you said, you can like appreciate them for what they had done for you in the past and kind of where you are now, but that doesn't mean that you still have to completely surround yourself with them.
I think that also helps with not taking it personally when people aren't as connected to me all the time too. Like I know like there are friendships that I've outgrown or that I'm not
Has a
around.
podcast, and I don't know if you guys.
Erica, what were you saying about the friendships that you're not around or something or other? No, you were unmuted and now you're muted.
I was waiting to see if she like popped back in because I was like, I didn't want to like, because it cut off with the feed. I think it's just helpful to know like, because I've moved around a lot, but I've always been one of those people that keeps really close like connection. And like, I felt like, I think on my end, if I didn't reach out to somebody, I felt like I was failing or not being supportive of them because I wasn't connecting. And it's helpful to know like you do outgrow people and like, it's okay. You can like somebody and be supportive of somebody, and for that relationship to look different than it has always looked in the past. And there are some people that benefit. If you're a helper, there are people that benefit from you having poor boundaries. Like, and I found that like there were people that were taking advantage of me. And so when I set boundaries, they very much were like, you're changing. I don't like that. And they made it about me, like not being good enough or not helping. And personal development really helped me be like, no, like I am healthy. Like I am healthy right now. I know that. You're angry at me right now because I'm now setting boundaries that mean I'm not enabling you anymore. And like that is important to be able to, I mean, that cuts off some of that toxicity. So. Shanice, can you type or talk a little bit more about what you just said in the chat? Like that some people who are closest to you may not support you. You might have to talk or type though. Try to turn off your video and see if that helps.
Can you hear me? No. Okay, can you hear me now?
Kind of. You're still in and out, but I think we might be able to make out what you say.
It's so annoying. I like it.
So while she figures this out, so what I'm trying to get from all this is as you work on personal development, you are going to realize not only more about yourself, but the people around you. Am I hitting this right?
Yeah, and you're going to prune the bushes about who's around you. And it's going to be when I learn more about myself, there are people around me that maybe I didn't realize that they had thorns on them and they were cutting into me. And now I need to cut those thorns, and that's okay.
Sorry to keep asking.
Really, really hard. So it can be really hard, and it's a process to kind of separate yourself from certain people. So if you have to do it gradually, that's okay. Because sometimes, you know, there are people that you spend a lot of time with and you realize that that time is not conducive to who you're becoming. So sometimes it has to be a gradual process, and just know that it is hard. And all the coaches here are there to kind of help you too if you need to talk to somebody about that.
Okay, so I have Shanice on the phone, and we're going to see if we can play the phone through my computer.
Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me better?
They can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, so there was a podcast that Trent Shelton did, and it was like, why your support system doesn't support your journey. And it was huge because
Shanice, you cut out.
what's going on, but in reality, he just doesn't really understand. And so and there's going to be people that are closest to you, like aunts and uncles and like, you know, family members that are like, why aren't you eating at this family dinner? Or like, you're too skinny, or you're working out too much. And it's like, dude, this is my journey and this is what's making me happy. And it really has nothing to do with you. And if you're not going to support that, that's okay. That's just a boundary that you put up for those people. And you continue to do what you need to do. There are a lot of people in life that, you know, can suck you dry, and it's okay to have specific boundaries with people, even if that means that they're going to be the closest people in your life. Just because you're growing and you're moving on, and they don't like the fact that you're turning into this person that is confident in whatever. And so they're going to do what they can to hold you back and be like, well, you know, old Brianna wouldn't do this, or old Brianna wouldn't say this. And it's like, well, you guys are holding on to this old person that I have like flourished and just kind of like shaved off because that person no longer fits with the goals and the morals that I have moving forward is what's happening in my journey. So it's a really cool and kind of emotional podcast to listen to, because it's like, how can my husband or my significant other or whoever not support this journey for me? And it's because they don't also like the change that's going, or they don't understand. And you can talk to them about making sure that they can understand and support you and for your journey.
Thank you, Shanice. And I wrote down the name of that. And I don't know if you want to put a picture of the podcast. I think what I'm going to do in the group is create like a unit, just like for people to like drop personal development. And that way it's always there and we can access it if we want to and add to it. But that's like, I think that's so huge because it's so terrifying. It's terrifying to me to have that fear of like, what if I do this thing and then I lose people and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's what I was afraid of happening. And it's the self-confirming bias. But it's learning that it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like Steph, you just said, like growing for you sometimes means growing away from people, and that's fine. And that's actually the process. It's very normal. So yes. Janice, are you still on there?
I'm here.
Okay. I mean, do you have anything else that you want to add, or anybody else while I have you on the phone and everybody can hear you?
No. Thank you guys for just being patient with me while I am heading back. And I really appreciate being able to talk to you all. This is new for me, and I was very nervous, and I don't know why, because you guys are always very warm and welcoming, obviously, when we talk and share. But yeah, I hope you guys just kind of got the gist of the importance of personal development. And if you have any questions about why I stopped and started again, feel free to reach out and know that it's not just you, that you're beginners. All of us sometimes struggle with these things too. So.
Okay, we will next week. Jess is going to be talking about her journey with coaching. And we are working on planning the stuff for next month. So as soon as we have that, we'll let you know what it is. And thank you guys for being on here. And I need to consult the calendar because I think not this week, but next week is Spirit Week. But I will confirm and let you know because I need to look at my calendar and check. But thank you guys for being on here. And if you did the chopped cooking competition, put your photos in the thread on Facebook or on bod groups, and then we will go ahead and have people judge. I don't know if anybody's seen like Maddie's already, but I saw Maddie's go up and I was like, well, fantastic. Send me some, but also like, whoa, it's incredible. So go look at it, and love you all. And we will talk to you soon.